Hello, I'm Kathleen Hall of CIO Marketing Services, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webcast, Enterprise Medical Imaging, Accelerating Growth Through Cloud and SaaS. US healthcare providers are facing a number of challenges, including rising operating costs, growing complexity, and workforce shortages. Cloud Enterprise Medical Imaging, combining cloud, SaaS, and managed services, can help address these shortages, optimize workflows, and improve system uptime. In this webinar, brought to you by CIO and AGFA HealthCare, with a guest speaker from IDC, we'll discuss how these technologies can benefit providers, helping them deliver better patient care, improve efficiency, and achieve strong ROI. Joining me today, I have two guests, Charles Morris, Director of Enterprise Imaging at AGFA HealthCare, and Mutaz Shegewi, Senior Research Director of Worldwide Healthcare Provider Digital Strategies at IDC. Welcome both. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourselves?
Well, thank you for having me. This is great. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's a very timely conversation considering the topic. And looking forward to it.
Thank you, Kathleen. We appreciate the discussion with CIO, and I think it should be a very lively discussion. This is a very hot topic in our industry, and I think there's a lot of organizations that want to hear different perspectives.
Absolutely, and thank you both for being here. So, Mutaz, maybe we could start with you. Would you mind setting the scene for us a bit here? What are some of the challenges healthcare providers are currently facing when it comes to enterprise medical imaging?
Sure, absolutely. So there are a number of important challenges to take into consideration. First is the what I like to refer to as the data problem in medical imaging. There's exponential growth of medical imaging data. IDC projected this to reach 7 exabytes this year, and it's being compounded by a 40% annual growth rate. And so this is highlighting kind of the urgent need for scalable cloud-based infrastructure across the board, and especially as it pertains to medical imaging infrastructure and how that can drive enterprise medical imaging in particular. And this is being driven, by increased medical imaging utilization, the higher file sizes, higher scan resolutions, and also a lot of the AI-driven growth around the diagnostic piece and even the operational pieces as well. And so that's one of the problems I think that needs to be taken into consideration is the data overload. Radiologist shortages are another important consideration. Radiology, I believe, alongside family medicine in the U.S. is projected to be impacted the most in terms of workforce shortages. And so that's a key consideration for the future of medical imaging. And as investments are being made, the high technology costs, providers are running on very slim margins. And so costs are always a key consideration. And so that's also a challenge, as well as cybersecurity threats. We're hearing about all these high profile cybersecurity attacks, especially in the US. And so that's also another key consideration. So I think take into consideration all those items, the data problem, radiologist shortages, and how that strains kind of the diagnostic capacity and the need to address that and burnout and any delays in image interpretation, the role for AI and automation to play in that, as well as the importance of driving up resiliency and driving down costs. I think those are all challenges and ways forward to think about them.
Thank you. And Charles, does that echo with what you're seeing in the market as well?
Largely, absolutely. We AGFA attracts a pretty specific, I'll say, type of customer. So we don't service the entire U.S. market, as you can imagine. However, the vast majority of the issues that Mutaz just illustrated aligns with our customers. One of the areas that our customers do tell us that they do struggle with is that they not only are they have staff shortages from a physician base, but they really have staff shortages from an IT management base. So historically in the medical imaging industry, it was very much a departmentally driven solution. And so they might have a single IT system for each and every single department. And so they have dozens and dozens of these systems. Enterprise imaging is a consolidation of many of those applications into kind of a converged infrastructure, which tries to reduce the number of applications, which leads to improved security, as Mutaz alluded to earlier. And so part of the market has already started really moving towards enterprise imaging. And now I think what's happening is that we're we're waiting for the larger, I'll say the more normal middle of the road type organizations versus a lot of the leading, bleeding edge academics and very, very large organizations that have the time, money, and resources to do it. So I think the time of this webinar is very appropriate for the market.
Great, thank you. I'd like to hear a bit more about how the shift towards cloud adoption is helping healthcare providers meet some of the enterprise medical imaging challenges that you both mentioned. Mutaz, maybe I could start with you.
Sure. Yeah. So cloud adoption, I think, is transforming the enterprise medical imaging landscape by tackling the efficiency, security, and accessibility problems head on. We're seeing cloud-based enterprise medical imaging platforms helping kind of accelerate workflows and enable remote reading, for example. This is easing the strain on the challenge I mentioned around radiologist shortages. So you can see kind of the correlation there. More and more AI and automation is being deployed through cloud-based models, and that can further reduce the data overload. It can help prioritize critical cases. And it can even help enhance diagnostic accuracy and clinical collaboration. And that's all very, very critically important for medical imaging, to turn medical imaging from a bottleneck, if you will, into a catalyst for better care. On the security front, cloud enterprise medical imaging is providing the ability to drive automatic updates, built-in encryption, zero trust security frameworks. And that significantly offloads, and Charles has touched on a very important problem, which is the IT shortages as well. And so that can significantly help those folks who run the operations of the cloud infrastructure or oversee it in terms of being able to drive the security necessary to thwart all these cybersecurity risks that are out there. And then I think a big one is, just the cost efficiency in terms of being another game changer. And it's not something typically seen up front, but seen across the journey, in that, you're shifting these high capital expenses to more scalable subscription or pay-as-you-go models, depending on, how you digest this cloud model and deploy it. So it's a very interesting time for enterprise medical imaging in terms of how the cloud is further facilitating, I guess, the maturity journey, if you will. And there's a divide when it comes to maturity, and you'll see this in one of the slides that we've included in terms of there are those who are investing kind of in incremental improvements who are somewhat established, and then there are those who don't have any new investments planned and who are at the risk of stagnation. And so the cloud is a very timely area in terms of being able to make the right investments towards a better future end state in medical imaging.
Thank you. And Charles, same question to you.
So our view is again, I think in generalities, I agree with Mutaz's opinion. For us, one of the things around the class of the software solutions that we have today is that the software is dramatically more sophisticated than it was 10 years ago, by probably a magnitude more sophisticated. And a lot of our customers at AGFA HealthCare, let me interject my own thought here. Last year, in excess of 65% of our new business was all cloud SaaS. And the question is why? And I asked every single one of these customers, why are you interested in this? Why are you driving towards this cloud-oriented, really SaaS-oriented environment? And it came down to really two things. One was staff shortages, but staff shortages due to the complexity of the level of the applications that we're running now. Inside of a cloud environment, they really don't have to think about how does this thing work? What makes it resilient? Hey, how do I get to business continuity? And how does it service my customers, my clinical customers nationwide? They don't have to think about these questions anymore. So it's not just that they're offloading the technical work, but they're offloading the complexity of understanding the depths of the application. They leave that to the vendor. There's no vendor out there that's absolutely perfect. Right? We make changes in the software, and we don't always have everything 100% correct. But in the cloud world, we are responsible for that, not our customer. So they don't have to worry week to week about how our infrastructure works. And it's a tremendous relief for them, because now they can just focus on their end users, the clinicians and physicians, which ultimately help their patients. They really want to be in the patient business, not the IT business. So that's one of the primary themes as to why organizations are asking us about cloud.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I did also want to dig into the difference between cloud and SaaS. Could you just briefly explain how they differ in this context?
Certainly. We have this saying that all SaaS is not cloud, and that's because cloud. There are cloud initiatives where organizations, the goal is to eliminate data centers as the primary initiative of cloud, and the large cloud vendors will work with our customers to help them reduce the on-prem data centers and move those into a cloud data center, and in that environment, the customer still owns the cloud, or they still own the organization, security, deployment, management of the cloud. And so really what they're doing is they're swapping their data center for a cloud data center. SaaS is pretty dramatic in its difference between, or contrast between that and cloud. So SaaS, ultimately what you're doing is you're offloading the responsibility of all of the infrastructure, all of the configuration, all of the performance to a vendor. So in our case, essentially, when our customers come to us, what we sell them is effectively a uptime guarantee and a performance guarantee. And they really don't have to worry about that back end. As Mutaz said earlier, it's really great because now they can get that down to a single cost per unit versus having a very complex formula as to how they calculate the total cost of ownership for an imaging program. It's very, very simple with SaaS.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's a useful distinction to make, I think. And Mutaz, could you tell us a bit more about how organizations can choose the right deployment model here?
Sure. So it's a strategic decision that depends on the organization's needs, whether it's scalability needs, security requirements, their long-term goals. I think it's very important for healthcare LOB and IT leaders alike to hold a very deep grasp of the differences and the nuances when it comes to cloud models, when it comes to deploying SaaS, and ensuring that their needs are met. I think to sum it up, public cloud I like to view as offering kind of a lot of the cost efficiencies that the cloud can bring. We're increasingly seeing a lot more powerful AI-driven analytics being deployed through public cloud, and more seamless scalability. So it's it's not. I'm not necessarily making a prescription, but I am saying that there are some factors or considerations that make it somewhat ideal for large-scale enterprise imaging and multi-site access. Private cloud providing kind of greater control and security. And with that, kind of suiting organizations with very strict compliance mandates or maybe specialized imaging needs, and hybrid kind of striking a balance between both, allowing providers to kind of keep sensitive data on-prem while leveraging cloud for scalability and AI-driven workflows. And so I think it comes down to having a very good understanding of the differences and being able to align those key features and facets of cloud deployment, and also SaaS, whether you're going with a managed or non-managed model, in terms of meeting your goals.
Great, thank you. And I know we talked a little bit about different maturity levels, but I'm also interested to hear about how the cloud can be leveraged to meet different enterprise medical imaging needs. Charles, can I get your thoughts on that?
We recognize that not all organizations are at the same maturity level, and it's not a bad thing, right? Each organization, depending on how the organization has grown over the years, puts them in a bit of a different place. Some organizations, as I alluded to earlier, have a very, very distributed budgeting and ultimately ownership process of their IT systems. What we find is that those organizations that have that kind of very distributed management model typically are a bit slower in their consideration of moving towards cloud. And that's just because they're distributing their responsibility differently. Those organizations that have a very, I'll say, forthright CIO or CTO that very much issues a mandate towards consolidation, centralization, scale, and these sorts of things tend to be a bit more mature. And so when we first, start speaking with organizations, we can tell fairly quickly kind of where they are on the spectrum. Again, I think in the end, everybody is going to move to this centralized, cost-efficient model over time, and it's just a spectrum. And so there are organizations that are very, very constrained as far as their ability to invest. And over time, cloud and the SaaS services will continue to drop in cost, and eventually they will slide in. So that's kind of our view of it. Everybody is in their own place, and I don't see it as a detriment.
Thanks. And is that your take as well, Mutaz?
Yeah, I think to a very large degree, I would only add, I think what the data is showing us in that, there are 38% or close to 38% that are investing in their existing systems for achieving kind of the incremental improvement that they're looking for, with 33% having no new investments planned. I think it drives the question of, whether your investments are indeed future-proofing your medical imaging capabilities, or are you risking kind of obsolescence or being a laggard in a very competitive and increasingly AI-driven healthcare landscape? And so I think that's just one consideration I would add in terms of what the data is telling us, and I think it's an important one, because that's where we kind of see the future of enterprise medical imaging is ensuring that you have a scalable, secure, and AI-ready foundation that can adapt to different healthcare needs and medical imaging needs in particular in the future.
Great, thank you. And what do you think are some of the benefits of working with a partner to achieve the outcomes that we've discussed?
Time to value, in short. Organizations like AGFA that we've done this numerous times. We can provide very succinct guidance to help our customers reach their very specific goals. And we don't have to spend an enormous amount of time, trying to develop something completely custom. We've had a lot of organizations go down this path, so we can provide guidance. I think that's what a lot of organizations are looking for, in particular in the SaaS cloud category, is an organization that can help provide them a roadmap that gets them there. The time, I'll add this, that the time that it takes to get a SaaS enterprise imaging system up and running, it probably is probably 75% less than traditional systems. It's pretty dramatic as far as the difference in time to value. So I think that's the main thing is that there's a very prescriptive option that SaaS can provide to most organizations.
Thanks. Do you have anything to add on that, Mutaz?
Yeah, no, I agree with Charles. I think it's largely guidance and acceleration in terms of providing not just the scalability but also the expertise and reducing kind of the operational burden. I think that's what a partner or a trusted partner brings. Our proven deployment strategies, proven capabilities, and expertise with compliance, and ensuring kind of that seamless transition from legacy to a more future-ready medical imaging platform.
If I could add one more comment, I mean, this same subject is the reason why vendors like us are partnering with these very large, experienced cloud service organizations. They're allowing us to not have to understand or worry about the intricacies of the infrastructure. They're providing that towards us. And our goal is to provide that same level of guidance towards our customers and take some of what they have to worry about off their plate. And so we're benefiting from cloud as a vendor as well. And so that just cascades through us to our customers. And ultimately, it just makes the whole thing simpler. These things can be very, very complicated. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and there's nothing simple about it. But it doesn't need to be complicated. That's right. The difference between simple and complicated.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Charles. I'm glad you brought that up. There's I guess a very strong kind of synergistic relationship between kind of the customer and the vendor, and in terms of any synergies that can be brought from kind of additional partnerships in the ecosystem.
Great. And on that point about customers, Charles, do you have any examples of customers that you've helped?
Yeah, one of our more recent is Tampa General Hospital, and they're in Tampa, Florida. They were in the process of acquiring a few new hospitals. Mergers and acquisitions are very popular in the U.S. for U.S. healthcare. It seems that it's the norm in U.S. healthcare business is growing that scale so that they can get to these efficiencies of scale. And when these hospitals were acquired, the IT systems needed some updating pretty rapidly to get them to the standards of Tampa. They have very, very high standards, and so they reached out to us, and ultimately they went with cloud because of speed. And of course, the other benefits we talked about earlier is that AGFA executed the majority of the infrastructure build and getting the system up and running. And I believe that, from the time that they contracted to the time that we had a system up and running for testing was probably less than 60 days, something in that range. It's very, very fast. And so this is they're up and live and running on the system. They love it. And it's kind of thought free, which is the best part about it.
That's a great example. Thank you. So my final question to you both, what advice do you have for organisations that are starting out on their journey or are looking to accelerate their enterprise medical imaging cloud adoption? Mutaz, did you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. So I think, beyond kind of the traditional assessment and planning process and building on some of the items that, both Charles and I discussed here today, prioritizing the cloud in terms of, expediting the transition, I think that unlocks a lot of the advanced AI, a lot of the deployment models that can truly offload the burden on IT, and just very, very high performance medical imaging capabilities. So I think the cloud and prioritizing the cloud is one way forward. Another is optimizing the workflows and user experience, and that your cloud strategy should streamline workflows and improve efficiency, especially as it pertains to clinician satisfaction, and reducing the burden on them and errors, potential for errors and burnout. And so having the optimization done right across the interfaces and through automation, I think, is very important. Integration, the entire integration piece, and that the cloud enterprise imaging strategy and its technical components should align with other digital health strategies in the health system or in the provider organization, that can further foster kind of the synergies we were talking about in the collaboration and that can improve care coordination. Because as Charles mentioned earlier, and I think there's a wide consensus, this is largely about convergence. This is a centralization play. And so being able to integrate that with broader initiatives is very important. I'll add that the security piece is very important in terms of just keeping in mind that we live in an era where there are these rising cybersecurity threats, and healthcare organizations are amongst the most targeted. And so prioritizing data privacy, compliance, and incorporating kind of the robust security that a platform or a modern platform can bring is very important. And then the final thing I'll leave with is that redefining governance and operations, and that your cloud imaging strategy will encourage a rethink of governance, and I would further argue a necessitation of redesigning your thinking around operations for efficiency and for scalability and for an increasingly AI infused world in healthcare. And so those I think are some of the recommendations beyond kind of the traditional assessment and identifying pain points and bringing it all to life.
I think that's a great summary. I'll add really, I think, two things from our perspective that we've learned as we are working with customers and they're choosing to go towards cloud, things that we've discovered during the process of working with them that I think are educational. They're certainly educational for us. First is that I think as you are looking at potential vendors or partners to look at a cloud solution, you need to scrutinize how that application came to be. There are a lot of vendors that just took older applications and pushed them in the cloud and call it a cloud solution. So you need to be scrutinize that with a lot of effort. And secondly, the other thing that we find is that not all cloud SaaS models are equivalent. There is bring your own cloud on one end of the scale, which is just the general cloud strategy. On the other end of the scale is a full service SaaS, where you're really just paying a single bill to a single vendor, and the single vendor takes care of most of everything. And then in the middle, there's kind of this pseudo SaaS thing where it's kind of a hybrid, where the vendor brings some things and the SaaS vendor brings some things because the solution isn't comprehensive. And so just be aware that not all SaaS are created equally, and you should spend some time to really dive in. And so, those are the types of educations that we try to provide to customers, just so that they can find out where they need to be on the scale. It may not be us, right? They may be in a different place in their journey, and that's great. We're just here to try to provide advice and help people be confident in their decision.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much for your time today. And thank you to our audience for listening. For more information on the topic of enterprise medical imaging, accelerating growth through cloud and SaaS, please visit the resources section on your screen. I'm Kathleen Hall. Goodbye.